Why did I decide recording so many videos in a row in the middle of summer in a black shirt was acceptable? Oh, I'm recording. So what happens when you try to top 4 previous releases from a band from the original metalcore scene? No, seriously, it's really hot in here, kill me. Welcome to Everyone Who Does Music, where today we're taking a look at the 5th and newest album from Of Mice and Men with their effort called Defy. This is the first album without former lead singer Austin Carlisle, as he had to leave his band finally due to his worsening problems with Marfan syndrome. If you don't know what that is, Google it. I don't remember everything off the top of my head, and I don't feel like describing it for a review, but Aaron Pauley has taken the lead for this finally, and this preceded the very divisive Cold World, an album that really split up both critics and fans' interpretations, but Aaron Pauley tried to reassure everybody that Defy was going to be an album that went back to roots while evolving on former techniques, and I suppose you could say they're just overall sound from earlier albums such as Self-Titled or even The Flood. Aaron Pauley, he came into the band on their album Restoring Force, and since then has had more and more features on vocals, both for clean and rough. But this is, again, his first album purely at the front for both types of vocals here. And last year's couple singles, Unbreakable and Back to Me, they served as a bit of a comeback. They weren't exactly they weren't announced to be on the next album, I should say, so people saw that as sort of a divide between the old Of Mice and Men and the new Of Mice and Men. And the songs, they felt very good. They felt like they did have a lot of promise for what would be this eventual next album, whether they were just the dividing line between two albums or they were a part of it, and I, for one, was very excited to hear what this new release would bring. One thing that made me worry just almost immediately was that both of these songs, they were good. They had very interesting elements in the lyricism, but the lyricism essentially boiled down to, I'm going to rise up, I'm going to, let's make a pun here, I'm going to defy everything, and I'm strong. That's what both of the songs were, and it was kind of an all bark, no bite thing. It was a song that I can enjoy, but one that I could also look at and think, that's all? And I really hoped that this wasn't going to be the full album in the end, so when I saw that that formula was very much furthered into this album, I really hoped that it was be done in moderation as I listened throughout, but it wasn't. It wasn't. So, what do we get when it comes to Defy? Do we get the very Skillet-esque yelling about a force that you don't even know what it is, you're just rising up against it and trying to fight it? What am I fighting against? I don't know, I'm gonna yell about it. That's exactly what you get with Defy. That's the whole album. I could end the review right here with a score, but for the sake of my own integrity, which is very loose but it's there, let's actually take a look at some examples here. Vertigo is a song that touches every single base on the way to being a metalcore classic, but being a metalcore classic isn't good when the song basically boils down to one line, just one whole line. Let me read it out for you. How is everything so meaningless when we're the products of a random disaster? That just sounds ripped straight off of a Tumblr post that some 15-year-old made in hopes of coming across as original and edgy. And before anyone says anything like, oh, that's all metalcore, there's much better examples of how to do an album within that genre. For as much as I kind of bogged down on Kane Hill's recent album Too Far Gone, they did handle elements like that and overall lyrical themes a lot better than both this song and many of the songs found throughout this album. There's just so many bad examples, oh my god. The main problem here is there's so many different ways to come across on a song, getting a little flustered here, that doesn't come off as just whiny and insecure, but Of Mice and Men, I guess they don't know how to do that. It's not possible for them. Let's focus on the positive part. There is one very much shining moment throughout all of this. There's a Pink Floyd cover of their song Money, and I've very rarely had the motivation to listen to Pink Floyd. I think it's just sort of, as much as I'm going to get beaten down by this, pretentious dad rock, very much so. I listened to their most popular album, and I didn't really find any special factors that really stood out. I feel like if I dug deep enough within that year, that decade, that genre, I could find so many similar albums. But for what Aaron Pauli does on this album, and even the drummer Valentino, credit is due for delivering a memorable performance here. It was a song definitely chosen out of care rather than necessity and urgency. And Alan Ashby, the guitarist, isn't the man he used to be, but he just has an absolutely phenomenal performance on this song. He takes away the show, and I really believe this is his best performance since their album Restoring Force, most specifically the deluxe edition on that, because the deeper cuts really tied things together. This is just his best performance in a number of years, and especially the most memorable one on this album, which is interesting to think that a cover of a song did better than the original songs on here, but it's a thing that happened. It happened here. That really defies the odds, doesn't it? I hate my jokes. I listened to the original song and you didn't really get hints of anger or vibes of just, I suppose, again, defiance. Ugh. But they managed to actually pull that off quite well. Instead of sounding like a whiny 15-year-old, they actually sounded like men, like they belonged in this band here, and what they were trying to do actually made sense for once. And I think it's really a song to look at whether you're a diehard fan of them or a casual fan. It's the most standout from this album by far, and yeah, it's something to check out. So Aaron often talks about how Of Mice and Men songs are meant to come across as something to resonate with you, no matter what type of listener you are, and I feel like this really happens with the song How Will You Live. This track is their direct hit at how mental health is currently viewed in the world right now, as it's finally a topic people are pursuing and making note of, but a lot of people are very much just trying to cash in on this, and for all their faults, Of Mice and Men has always, and even to a point on this album, still does remain very honest and not grasping at this sort of topic. It's something that they, both in the past and now, have very rarely touched on, but when they do, it makes sense and it doesn't feel like a forced effort. The song is a letdown, but the overall message, it works. It's communicated. I'm getting frustrated by this album, though. I can't put it into words. How's that sound from a reviewer? I can't put it into words how disappointing this album is. That should be the tagline. That should be the description, but I'll be neutral. A lot of these songs really, now that I think about it, they focus on a lot of building up, a lot of anticipation with no real payoff. It just falls flat, and I think the biggest example of this is a song that people really had their eye on and their anticipation up in the sky for. I can't speak today, I'm so sorry. People had their anticipation for Forever YDGing, Young Dogging, I don't know what's going on there. What's presumably the final edition in the YDG trilogy. This was a case where I felt it necessary to go listen to the other two, and both of the other two songs, fantastic standout points of the album. This song, it's not the worst, I'll say that much. It's very much in the middle. The song itself is full of many references to songs such as You Make Me Sick and When You Can't Sleep at Night. And it's a callback to old Of Mice and Men, and I can appreciate the band trying to do this, with Austin Carlisle now being out of the band. I guess it's sort of their way of saying, we're not forgetting who we are, we're not really trying to become someone else, even though this album has made us become unmemorable. We're still Of Mice and Men, and I feel, with no jokes here, I feel like it's really a good call to make for that track. I gotta say, above all else, I'm just disappointed by Of Mice and Men. Am I allowed to say that as a fan? Because I often preach about how bands don't really owe their fans anything in the cases of what they do with their music and how they evolve, but there's just no other way to really word it. I'm just very much let down by this album. I feel like Aaron Pauli tried to capture a new audience while also trying to remain true to his core audience, and that just didn't work out well. Did not whatsoever. So, I'm just going to end the review here. This album, Of Mice and Men's Defy, is getting a 5 out of 10, and that's the end. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you agree with what I say? Do you disagree? Do you hate how negative I got and how jokingly I referred to this album? It was all true, though. Don't forget to like, dislike, subscribe, unsubscribe, share it, retweet it, Instagram it, tout it. Don't forget to unsubscribe. I'll see you in the next video.